My name's Lisa Marshall. I am the program director of Heat Smart Tompkins. We serve Tompkins County and Chemung County, which are both in NYSEG territory. I actually live down in Chemung County. And we're very excited to be hosting this webinar along with Heat Smart Finger Lakes South, Heat Smart Southern Tier, the Fossil Free Tompkins, the Poor People's Campaign of the Eastern Southern Tier, and Get Your Greenback Tompkins. Who am I missing, guys? Oh, maybe Heat Smart Central New York might be one of our partners as well. And we have all collaborated to get the word out to all of you to make sure you knew about this special webinar with our very good friends, Richard Berkeley and Alicia, whose last name I've forgotten, from the Public Utility Law Project. This is the small but mighty group of lawyers who fight every day. They do battle with the utilities and the Public Service Commission to make sure that they are doing what they are supposed to do to take care of all of us out here trying to just keep the lights on and stay warm in the winter. So with that, I am going to turn it over to you, Richard. Take it away.
Thanks, Lisa. And let me get my PowerPoint up and share my screen. So let's see. There's that and that and that. So hi, everybody, and thank you. My name is Richard Berkeley. I am not Lori Wheelock, who's on the top of our slide, but we decided since Lori and I switched trainings tonight, she's doing a training in the Syracuse area, and I came to be with you all. I left her name up, and I think my name's on the other one, so we're confusing people, which is always fun. I'm the executive director of the Public Utility Law Project. As Lisa very kindly said, we are on your side. Our mission for 40 years since we were created back at the energy crisis at the end of the 70s after the oil embargo and the oil price shocks and stagflation and all that kind of stuff that if you weren't alive for, you learned about in high school or in college. Our mission has been since then to fight on behalf of low and fixed income New Yorkers to try and keep the rate increases down, to fight for your consumer rights, and to get involved in things like universal service of telephone, water, energy, and all those kinds of things, since there's no independent group that does that as a mission other than us. And here's some contact information on the front here, and I will get moving. More contact information, that's me, Richard, and we'll put this up again at the end. Alicia Landis, our new attorney at the Public Utility Law Project, and she's our attorney for Central New York. You can follow us on social media. You can get to all of our links off of our link tree. We have a statewide hotline, obviously toll free. If anyone remembers what toll was, paying for long distance. And of course, our address too. So what we'll talk about today are, to some extent, the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic downturn that occurred from that, and what protections are there still in place for you. And we have our primary presentation on this kind of stuff with us, but we're going to stop and just do electric and gas and not talk about water or talk about telecom unless you ask us to at the end of all this stuff, because we're going to spend some time talking about the bill surge and the commodity price surge and all that kind of stuff, since that is as important to you as it is to Con Edison, despite the fact that they got most of the news coverage in the state. So as of this February, 1.3 million residential energy consumer accounts were 60 days or more behind on their utility payments. To put this in perspective, a household is considered to be 3 people in New York. So almost 1 in 5 New Yorkers were in a household that was 60 days or more behind. The total amount of unpaid utility bills or arrears were $1.74 billion in energy only. We know that New York City's water customers were 600 million behind as of February. And we assume that that's true for the rest of the state, although as of now, we're getting most of this data from foiling municipalities of one type or another, and we've only found about 100 million. But we assume there's another 600 to 800 million in arrears in water around the rest of the state. And then finally, talking about telephone, we have no idea. They're not required to report to the regulator, just like water is not required to report to the regulator. And in the case of internet, we know that New Yorkers spend about 400 million a month on internet. And so we assume that everybody was not paying their bills and that there are a couple of $1 billion in the internet unpaid bills area too. As for NYSEG, 108,505 customers, or about 335,000 individuals, are behind $51.5 million. And we give you the site to where you can look for this yourselves. We're not guessing. We are looking at the filings from the utilities. And Alicia, would you like to jump in now?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Landis, and I'm going to be talking with you all about energy utilities, which encompasses electric and natural gas. NYSEG supplies electric and gas across the state, but fuel, oil, and propane heating options are not regulated. Go to the next slide. So gas and electric service terminations may be starting up again in April when the heating season ends, which we'll talk about more later. So it is important to know customer rights for these terminations. First, if a customer cannot pay their electric or gas bill on time, the utility cannot terminate that person's service for at least 35 days. So to break that 35 days down, the company can take no action until payment is at least 20 days past due. So if the bill is due on April 1st and you miss the payment, the company cannot take any action until at least April 20th. On top of that, the company must issue a final termination notice at least 15 days before shutoff. So once the 20 days are up and the company can take action, then they must provide 15 days notice before the scheduled shutoff. Therefore, a customer has 35 days until the utility can terminate service. Second, terminations are allowed only Monday through Thursday between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. So terminations are not allowed on any Friday or public holiday, or on any day the utility's main office is closed. So if the main office is closed due to weather, then the company cannot be out shutting off service. And lastly, terminations are not allowed during the 2-week period encompassing the winter holidays and New Year's Day. Next slide, please. So there are also extra protections during the heating season for customers. New York State does not have a moratorium on terminations during the winter months, but there are protections during the heating season, which is November 1st through April 15th. During the heating season, the company must wait 35 days to act, as well as must try to contact an adult resident by telephone or in person at least 72 hours before the shutoff to see if a medical emergency exists, and they must try to contact an adult resident by telephone or in person at the time of shutoff. Next slide, please. So we do have a checklist that we go through to help customers prevent electric and gas terminations. The first thing we do is we encourage the customer to pay what they can when they can. This will help in the future when we negotiate a deferred payment agreement with the company on behalf of the customer. And it also shows the company that the customer is trying to pay. Additionally, it gets the customer back in the habit of paying their bill. Second, we contact the utility to ask if a termination is scheduled, and if so, when it is. If there is a termination scheduled, we ask the company for a 30-day courtesy hold on the account so that they have time to remedy the situation. Next, we ask the customer if they have sought financial assistance for the arrears through their local Department of Social Services or DSS, or sought funds from charitable organizations. If they have, we encourage them to tell their utility and request a hold on their account as we wait for those funds. And if they haven't, we usually will take the opportunity to encourage them to apply for those assistance programs and help them fill out the applications. Then we ask if someone in the household has a serious medical condition or is using life-sustaining equipment. We'll talk about this more later on in the presentation as well. And then we also asked the company if the company has offered the customer an affordable deferred payment agreement. If we haven't, we help them get one as soon as possible. And lastly, we ask if the customer has filed a complaint with the Department of Public Service. This will prevent shutoff while the complaint is in process. Next slide, please. So we also have a checklist of financial assistance programs to help pay for these energy bills. The biggest one of these is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or HEAP. Customers can apply by contacting their local DSS or online through My Benefits. There are different types of HEAP besides regular HEAP, including emergency HEAP, which opened back in January of this year. For this type of HEAP, the customer needs an active shutoff notice. And then there's the Domestic Electric Emergency HEAP grant. And this is for customers whose gas may be paid by their landlord, but their thermostat still runs on electric, so there's still protection for them there. And then there's also Renters HEAP, which opened on October 2nd of last year. And then two other types are the Heating Equipment Clean and Tune, which is open from October 1st, 2021 to September 31st, 2022. And this is a grant that covers basic maintenance and cleaning of a customer's furnace or boiler or other means of heating. And then the Heating Equipment Repair or Replace, which is also open from the same period, and it will repair or replace a customer's source of heating. And lastly, the Cooling Assistance, which opens up on May 2nd of this year. And there is also the Emergency Energy Assistance, or what we call one-shots, that customers may be eligible for through DSS. These can be a bit tricky for homeowners, as they usually are given as a loan that needs to be paid back. And lastly, a customer can utilize utility-funded charitable programs. Okay, next slide, thanks. So NYSEG does have a monthly low-income bill discount program, or energy affordability program. NYSEG's EAP saves customers roughly $9 a month off of their bill. So if a customer receives any of the following assistance programs, they should submit proof for enrollment in EAP. And these programs include the HEAP, SNAP, SSI, Medicaid, federal public housing assistance, and Lifeline, as well as the HEAP grant can be applied if it's applied to a fuel vendor other than NYSEG. You can also become part of this program. Next slide, please. So there are two COVID-19 related financial assistance programs. The first one is ERAP, which is federally funded, and it's meant to help provide rent and utility relief. This is a defense to eviction, but not to utility shutoffs. So far, we haven't seen ERAP really go out for utilities. We've encouraged people to apply, but we haven't heard of anyone receiving the benefit yet. And then the regular arrears supplement, or RAS, is a grant of up to $10,000 in electric and gas utility arrears relief through DSS. Applications opened on September 22nd, but the program just stopped accepting applications yesterday, March 15th. But we are hoping that this program reopens, as it's been extremely helpful for those customers that have applied and received those funds. For this program also, the eligibility is the same as HEAP, but the customer must apply for HEAP first. And then there are also energy efficiency programs that customers can apply for, which will help customers lower their electric and or gas bills. NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, recently released a new website that helps customers figure out what they're eligible for. So customers could qualify for programs including Solar for All and Empower.
Thanks, Alicia. Do you want me to pick up on these and go forward, or you want to keep going because you're having fun?
I can keep going. I have notes for the rest of them. So
Okay, why don't you keep going? Before you do, though, let me point out to everybody who's watching now that two things that are in the state budget. You may know that the ERAP program ran out of money, and that the Legal Aid Society of New York City sued the state to force them to open up for applications again. And there's 1.25 billion in the legislative budget right now, and they're going to be negotiating with the governor to see if they can keep that 1.25 billion in the ERAP program, which has been extremely helpful theoretically around the state for renters. As Alicia pointed out, we haven't seen a whole lot of money going out the door, period, and essentially slightly more than zero amount going on utility arrears, even though Congress wanted it to pay for that. But it's our hope that the legislature will fix the program in this budget, and that there'll be more money for utility arrears in that. And thanks, Alicia.
So now we're going to cover protections for customers who have a serious medical condition or life-sustaining equipment. So if a customer or household member has a serious medical condition that will be aggravated by termination, such as a type 1 diabetic who needs to keep their insulin in the fridge, service can be continued if their doctor calls the utility and advises them of the emergency condition. A telephone certification is only good for 5 days and must be followed by a written certification. So a written certification is only valid for 30 days and must contain the doctor's name, address, and state registration number, the name and address of the utility consumer, the nature of the serious illness or medical condition, and a statement that the illness or condition will be aggravated by termination of utility service with reasons supporting that conclusion. Additionally, the written certification 30-day hold can only be renewed once under law, but as a practical matter, utilities may be flexible on this. So equipment that is considered life-sustaining if the customer relies on electrically operated life-sustaining devices and may be in immediate danger if their electric service is interrupted.
Yeah, and the thing to think about is they used to call these things iron lungs, but they're called oxygen concentrators now. If you or some member of your household is on a device that requires electricity to keep you or your household member alive, you cannot be shut off, period.
All right, and then this is my last slide that I have notes for.
You know.
So the Deferred Payment Agreement, or DPA, is a Home Energy Fair Practices Act, or HEFPA, requirement. So a DPA is a written agreement to pay arrears for past utility service over time. The DPA must be in writing and signed by the customer and utility representative. A down payment on arrears may be required, and the DPA must be tailored to the customer's financial circumstances. The lowest agreement is a $0 down payment and $10 a month plus the current bill. So under the Parker-Richardson Moratorium Act of 2021, it was ensured that residential electric, gas, water, telephone, internet, and cable customers who notified their utility before December 21st, 2021, that they experienced a change of financial circumstances must be offered an affordable deferred payment agreement until June 30th of this year. So for example, I had a Con Edison customer who was around $24,000 in arrears. She was offered a DPA of $4,000 down payment and $2,500 a month. Obviously, she couldn't afford that. So I was able to negotiate that down to $0 down and $10 a month plus the current bill.
Which was awesome, to use a technical term. And let me jump in, Alicia, and thank you. So there is a statutory complaint process at the Department of Public Service. And what they do is they require customers to first complain to the utility. And so if the utility doesn't resolve your complaint, then you call the Department of Public Service complaint line, and we have the 800 number here, or you can file a complaint online. Alicia and I are attorneys, so we always suggest that you file something in writing because you have a copy later. Obviously, people forget what they say to you on the phone almost instantly. Most initial complaints are not investigated by the department. Instead, they're referred back to the utility with directions to look over the complaint again and respond to the consumer. If the complaint is related to a potential shutoff or to the establishment of service, they have to contact you within 2 business hours after the DPS, that is, Department of Public Service, calls them up. If the complaint is not related to billing or another emergency matter, the utility should contact the customer by the end of the next business day. If you don't get the response that you think you should have gotten from the utility in that second bite at the apple, you can appeal that decision within 15 days. And you have the choice of either an informal hearing or an informal review. We always advocate for you to pick the informal hearing, which is when you and the utility are essentially in a room, or nowadays on WebEx, with an administrative law judge from the Department of Public Service, and they hear your case, you present your evidence, and they make a decision in writing at some point. We always suggest to take the informal hearing because it's a lot harder to say no to someone looking at you in the face as opposed to an informal review where you just submit a stack of paper. A stack of paper is easy to say no to. If you don't get the decision at that point that you think you should have gotten, you can then appeal in writing to the Public Service Commission within 15 days. And at a public meeting of the commissioners, they will announce the decision on your case. If, again, you think they made a mistake, you file what's called a request for reconsideration. You ask them to take another look and you tell them why they were wrong, again in writing. And if you still don't get the outcome that you think you should have gotten all along, and this happens more than you think, you can then file something called an Article 78 in Supreme Court of New York State, which is a special type of legal proceeding where you sue the government. So you have the ability to push back against decisions that are against you, and we do that quite a bit. Alicia is actually very fortunate that she's gotten some of these cases already, and is going to have some fun with them and help some people, just like she helped that lady with the giant unpaid bills. So what happens if your landlord stops paying the electric or gas bill? And that happens a ton in the large cities in the state. So quite frequently, the energy accounts are under the landlord's name. Either your heat is included in your rent, or electric and heat in the common areas are all paid for by the landlord. So what do you do if you get a notice from NYSEG that the landlord's account is about to be shut off? And this is, by the way, is a legal requirement too that they have to tell you. So the first thing that you do is you contact the landlord or your management company and you notify him and you say, what is your plan? Are you gonna get into a deferred payment agreement? Are you gonna pay? Tell us now. In a multiple dwelling unit that is a normal kind of apartment building, or even in a small apartment building, what you do then is you form a tenants association. You can open up a new utility account in the name of the tenants association. And then what you do is that tenants association takes over the account from the moment you open it. It's not required to pay any of the back arrears, even though every now and then the company may act like you're supposed to, but you know better now because you've been to this training. So you take over the bill at that moment in time, and then the tenants association pays the payments that the landlord should have been paying, and you deduct that from your rent. And that's under the real property administrative procedure law and also under the public service law. So we also suggest always, and we believe in this thing that we call full court press, which is you talk to your assembly person, your senator, if you're living in a city, your city council member, if you're living in a rural area, talk to your town supervisor or your mayor, talk to all of your politicians and say, this is what's going on. We want you to be aware. We want you to come out and help us when we need help. If the service has been shut off, you can contact the Department of Public Service for assistance. And we also tell you, contact the Department of Social Services in your county, tell them what's going on, and they should usually be willing to come in and help you out also. This last piece, which is Article 7A of the Real Property Administrative Procedure Law, allows you in the city of New York, basically Westchester South, to go to court and take over the entire building if the landlord is doing this kind of nonsense. In upstate New York, this is Article 19A of the RPAPL. And usually that's not something that we do. We are focused on utilities. But if you go to a legal services or legal aid or a housing group, they should be able to provide you a landlord tenant attorney who is well acquainted with these types of actions. They happen all the time in Rochester, I'm told. And they can help you take over the building, and then it is assigned to a not-for-profit third-party manager for the building, so they actually fix stuff, pay their bills and whatnot, as opposed to what your rotten landlord did before. Hopefully you're fortunate enough to have a good landlord. So the NYSEG bill surge. In 1998, the state of New York's energy markets were deregulated, and so everybody's bills now have two parts on them. They have something called the delivery charge, and they have something called the supply charge. The delivery charge is the part that is completely within the control of your utility. The supply charge, because of deregulation, tells you what the cost is of the natural gas and the electric that your utility buys for you. Now, they are not allowed to mark them up. They give them to you at the cost that they pay. But we're seeing now, when the price of those go up, the fact that they don't mark them up doesn't help a bit. So with regard to your delivery rates in NYSEG territory, November 2021, the Public Service Commission approved a 3-year increase for NYSEG. Rates go up every year. They're guaranteed to go up every year, and they're going to file their next rate case in May of this year, probably the last week of the month. We opposed it. We were able to get the rates knocked down a bit, but we were very concerned in this case, as in several others after it, about the warning that we got from the federal government. I'm skipping to the bottom of the slide, but it fits into the story. We got a warning from the federal government back in October of 2021, just before this rate case was approved, that commodity prices, that is the cost of electricity, gas, fuel oil, and propane, were going to go up quite a bit this winter if the winter was as warm as last year, and as we know, it was a lot colder. So NYSEG's rates are going to go up again in May of this year. That's May 1. That's their last increase under the old rate case, and they're going to file their new rate case, and they're going to ask for a lot of money. And the reason is because we knocked down their request for increases in the last case, and they're going to say that they can't keep their doors open without getting a whole ton more money. We'll get back to that in a minute. So the underlying problem that is creating the bill surge are basically, you can look at it in 3 pieces. The first one is that all of the states, all the utilities in the United States got a warning in October of 2021 from the feds. And the warning was, again, if the winter is as warm as it was last year, the cost of natural gas is going to go up between 20 and 40%. The cost of heating oil is going to go up between 30 and 50%. And the cost of propane, it may go up as much as 90%. Again, we know this winter was a lot colder. One of the things that the feds got wrong for New York was they said that the cost of electric wasn't going to go up that much because they factor in all the states that get their electric from burning coal. In New York, our electric is primarily created by burning natural gas. And so the gas prices went up in New York, the electric prices went up, much more than the feds thought was going to happen. But the thing to take away from this for you is not only that you 2019, NYSEG asked for an increase, a pretty high increase of their rates. Public Service Commission gave it to them in November of 2020. So for the average customer, the rates increased more than 9.6% a year over all 3 years for electric. For gas customers, they increased almost, I think it was almost 12% over the 3 years. So a large enough increase that PULP opposed it. We were vocal about it. They're going to be coming in and doing their next rate case filing again last week of this May, and they're going to ask for a whole lot more money. So stay tuned. And we advocate, by the way, that you, as you are complaining about the bill surge, you should be telling the Public Service Commission to oppose any increases by NYSEG. And we also suggest, and there are many people on the call who have done this with us before, but we suggest you get involved in the case and fight for the things that matter for you. So with regard to propane and fuel oil, they are not regulated by the Department of Public Service. In fact, they're not price regulated by any entity in the state of New York. The New York State Attorney General is the only entity that has real regulatory authority over them, and it's basically just complaints. So if you're one of the many people in New York who heat with fuel oil, which went up a huge amount this year, or if you heat or just use propane for cooking, and you are concerned about the bill surge on those, reach out to the Attorney General. We have her 800 number here and an online complaint form, and tell her to investigate them. She's in the Con Edison case. The AG hasn't been paying enough attention yet to the rest of the state's cases of this bill surge, but I'm pretty sure that she'll get involved in investigating all the utilities too. And let me stop there so that we can have a discussion and some Q&As. And thank you for your patience. I see there a whole bunch of things in the chat, but let's see. If folks would like to raise their hands and ask questions, Alicia and I are happy to answer.
I
think.
Can you see me?
Is that Maureen?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, because I can't see me on here.
Well, we actually see that very nice picture of you, and it looks like your kids are your grandkids.
Grandkids.
Yeah.
It's the best life. My question is that 1 week my bill was $597 for an Airbnb that has not been rented.
So
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I spoke to 4 different people in 4 different phone calls. It ended up on the 4th phone call down to $430 verbally. I get the bill, it was $250. And that was due on March 4th. Now I got a new bill for $629, and that's due March 31st. How are 2 bills due in the same month?
So I'm going to use a technical phrase. They screwed up. And again, we suggest that you call the 800 number and file a formal complaint with the Department of Public Service. And you also talk to your assembly people and your senators and say, hey, this isn't right. We need you to call for a full investigation. And a deep and thorough investigation should find out what's going on. Because that sounds like a problem with their billing systems on top of their, go ahead, I'm sorry.
On top of that, I got a late notice and it's an auto pay.
Okay, so then I think we definitely need an investigation. And what you should also do, by the way, is reach out to our 800 number, which we'll put in the chat.